Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. It feels really good to be in the chamber today. This is my first day this year that I've been on the House floor. I had a meeting with my caucus earlier to discuss some issues that might come up because I was going to come in the floor today and not wear a mask, and was hoping to get my amendments in before I was dragged out of the chamber by the Sergeant of Arms. But as luck happened, the mask mandate has been dropped, and so I'm thankful for that. I saw your face, Representative Winkler. It was nice to see you smile. I do want to thank Representative Winkler and Representative Gomez and others that have worked on this bill. I've read this bill several times through on different engrossments, and I've done a lot of research on this bill, and I mean by researching it online. Your work has shown that you're taking amendments and you're actually trying to improve something, and I want to thank you for that, because there's a lot of work. There's a lot of stuff in this bill, and I wish that every member would read this bill through, because you'll realize a lot of the amendments to this bill, a lot of provisions in the bill are not what we would call crazy Democrat liberal garbage in the bill. There's actually a lot of provisions that you can tell you've went out into rural Minnesota and collected concerns about the bill. How do we keep it out of the hands of kids? We hear about gummy bear poisonings and lollipops. Well, this bill actually prohibits gummy bears and lollipops in different candies to prevent child poisoning. There are some good things in this bill, a lot of work. As a limited government guy, I don't like a lot of regulations. I would prefer to decriminalize it and just legalize it and let the free markets work, but I understand other states that have done similar things have run into a lot of problems. And this bill uses years of real-world experience that we've seen happen in other states and addresses that. And so I want to talk about some of the things that I really like in the bill, which is expanding medical cannabis. I am a huge fan of medical cannabis. I was grateful to hear Representative Lucero also say that he supports it. Most Republicans support it. I did an extensive poll in my district, and it wasn't just a yes or no question. It was a 10-question survey, starting with how old they are, to put them in age brackets, which party affiliation they have, got their name, email address, or at least city, so I know where they're coming from, got their IP address so I could make sure they couldn't take the survey twice and it couldn't be hijacked. And then it asked people, do you support medical cannabis? I described the program, how it's reduced to oil, and that every other state in the union allows the actual plant material, which greatly reduces the cost. 97% of I think I had 1,687 people take the survey, 97% support the medical cannabis program, 77% of people want it expanded to include flower. Now this is with almost 60% of the respondents being Republicans, some just mostly saying they're independents, and probably, I think there was about 10% saying they were Democrats, but mostly conservatives. These are people that follow me on social media, and after the 48th, I'm disgusted with Governor Walz's post. Most Democrats kind of get sick and peel off. So it's really conservatives that follow me on social media, and this is conservatives, and a lot of delegates that registered, and I had their names and could follow up with them for input. There's a large support of people that support expanding medical cannabis to use the actual leaf or the bud to be able to smoke it. Now, I lived in California in the 90s, and in Los Angeles, I voted to legalize medical cannabis in 96. But this program legalized it. The qualifying conditions were like headaches and PMS. I mean, it was basically if you had a head or you were a female, you could get get on the registry, and so it was really widespread. And there were not many guardrails on that program, but it was a backdoor to legalization. When you legalize the bud, it's very difficult to police it, and so it's important, even if you're just expanding the program to use the bud, you have to put in a framework to address it with everything else in your society, and I think that this bill does that, whether you're just expanding it for medical or you're allowing personal use. Now, we have to recognize that there is a large percentage of our population that uses cannabis recreationally, and to ignore that is just doing an injustice to the people of our state. We realize it's out there. We want to control it somehow or to make sure that it's safer. This bill does that. Talking to people in my district, this survey was also important because it asked a question: if recreational marijuana was on the ballot in 2022, would you vote yes or no? think it was 73% said yes of my base, which was surprising. And I followed up with a lot of people asking, why do you think that? Now, I want to address a few, I don't want to call them myths, but strong rhetoric on both sides of this debate, because I think it's important. You know, we've heard some discussion that sounds like it came right out of Reefer Madness, and there are people that think that it's a major gateway drug, and I think there's some concerns there. But I think that from what I've done research on, this gateway drug scenario really stems from the fact that you're going to a drug dealer to buy marijuana. And if you had to go to a drug dealer to buy beer, and that drug dealer is occasionally out of beer or wants to sell you something more addictive, they have crack that's about the price of a six-pack, you may buy crack. That is part of the gateway problem, and pushing marijuana over to be the same as alcohol will remove all of those other illicit, uncontrolled drugs from the market, or from being marketed to the same people. And I think there's merit there. One of the other concerns is I talk to a lot of constituents who are in their 60s and say, you know what, it's not that big a deal. I smoked grass in the 70s. Well, the marijuana that's available today would probably knock them right out of their Birkenstocks. These old hippies that think that marijuana is not a big deal, okay? The cannabis that's cultivated today is so many more times potent than it was from the 60s and 70s. That is also part of the rhetoric that we need to address and educate people as we work on this bill over the next year. There's very strong, potent strains, and they've been around for 20 years. I mean, as a 17-year-old, I spent time in Amsterdam and understand it from those years too. It's been around, and they've been working on this as states have legalized it. They've created strains that have enormous potency and different different effects on people, and so we should figure out how to approve or regulate those if that's where you want to go, because so many people that think we should just legalize it, it's no big deal. It's a little bit bigger deal than I think most people think it is. So we need to be honest with people on both sides of the debate for this. There are some other things that I have concerns about. As a property owner, I've not owned property and taken in Section 8 vouchers, but I believe, and we can do research on this, but there might be an issue with people losing their Section 8 vouchers because that's a federal program and cannabis is illegal federally. The fact that it's illegal federally also creates tax implications for companies that are actually producing this. They do not get to deduct their business expenses off of their federal taxes. That is a huge issue. That is one of the reasons why the medical cannabis is so expensive. If you have $1 million worth of product that you sell, but it takes you $800,000 to produce it, you have to pay federal income tax on $1 million. You don't get to deduct the $800,000 from your business expenses. But there is a possibility that this can change federally. I hope they do, because we have to fix this issue. Same with banking and everything else that comes into play. There's a lot of issues that we have to address with this, or at least be honest with. We had a good debate on employment law. I want to have more discussion on that. I know that a friend of mine who's a doctor in California. I called him because I know he's a pothead, and I said, "Hey, congratulations, they passed it." He's, "I can't touch it. I'm a doctor. If I came in on Tuesday and had an accident and they did a blood test, which is mandatory when there's an accident, it would be in my system. I would lose my license." So we do need to address where there's safety, and I like Representative Nolan's amendment for that, but we need to have further discussion on that. And there's also employers that just are opposed to it, and we should probably respect their decision to not employ people, and I think with some drug testing and figure that out, that's stuff we need to work on. Overall, I think that this bill is a good discussion between Republicans and Democrats. I look forward to the conversation. I'm certainly not going to be obstructing and just digging my heels in on everything. I think I want to be part of the conversation. And I've had long discussions with my constituents about the importance of expanding the medical program, recognizing that we should be decriminalizing, that the war on drugs is not working for marijuana. We need to be honest with people and find a better solution. And with our neighboring state, South Dakota, passing this, and likely the court case deciding that it's going to be legal in some respect, it's going to be close to our borders, and we should have a framework on how to address it. For public safety, it still remains a concern. How do we address it? But I think it's very similar to alcohol. And yes, police don't want to legalize this, but if they had their choice, they probably want to make alcohol illegal because it also creates a major public safety hazard. So I'm going to be voting yes today on this bill because I want to continue the conversation. It is not going to become law. Everyone that's talked about it is right, but it's a conversation we need to have. And so I'm supportive of it, and I thank you for all the work that you put into it and for accepting amendments and being open-minded to getting this thing through, because it's going to change either federally or we're going to have to expand our medical program. I've been to so many veterans for cannabis meetings, and I asked all the veterans, if we created a program to give you free medical cannabis, would you take it? And they all raise their hands. And I say, if you lost your right to own guns, would you still do it? And everybody puts their hand down. We have to address the Second Amendment issue, and I'm thankful for taking this amendment to protect gun rights, because that's important too. So thank you for the work, and I look forward to a continued conversation over the interim and next year on this bill. So thank you, members.